First things first, Jacksonville Jaguars defeat the Los Angeles Chargers 31-30 in what was the first half of the game was a complete domination on the Chargers' part. You had Justin Herbert, had a pretty good game for the most part. He was without most of his arguably his best wide receiver in Mike Williams. He was able to get some help from some other guys. Obviously, Keenan Allen's there, Gerald Everett as well. Josh Palmer had doing some stuff. Austin Eckler, he had 2 touchdowns. The guy's a touchdown machine. But they were able to create turnovers off Trevor Lawrence throwing 4 interceptions in the first half. He was almost pulling a Carolina Panthers Jake Delhomme against the Arizona Cardinals. Don't ask me about it because I watched that game and it was not good for my mental health. However, 4 interceptions in the first half. You had people on Twitter, you had people online, you had people at the game, you had analysts, people buzzing everywhere. This game's over. Write them off. It was a nice story. Sorry, Jags, you're going home. Chargers are the real deal. I tell you what, that second half of that game was fantastic. I actually was on my couch on the verge of falling asleep during this game at halftime. I somehow rallied myself, picked myself up. I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch this game. I'm going to see what happens because I will always say this and I will continue to say this. There's never enough points in an NFL game to stop you from coming back. We look at the Vikings game against the Colts this year, a 33-point comeback. We look at this game, it was a 27-point comeback? I mean, it just was mind-blowing. So Trevor Lawrence, first 4 picks in the first half. He looked absolutely horrible. He looked unsettled. He looked like a guy who had never played a playoff game before, which he was. Same thing could be said with Justin Herbert, but he looked fine. However, in this game, Justin Herbert, you can say what you want about him. Some people are believers in him. I think he has all the traits to be a great quarterback. I think he's just missing that coach there in some pieces in that coaching staff to really get him to that next level, which we'll talk about here next. But let's focus on the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, he got a lot of hate the first 2 years in his career. He had Urban Meyer, not the best start. He had, kind of a rough start trying to, really get himself together. In the draft, he was, graded as the generational talent, quarterback, can't miss prospect. Everyone wants to have him. If you could have one quarterback to start your team, it was going to be Trevor Lawrence. That's how most people were framing that up. And, he really struggled to get out of the gate. And let's be honest, the Jaguars, over the past, 10 years have not had a lot of success. They had that one little run there with their great defense, Saxonville and Blake Bortles, but that was only 1 year. That didn't last long. And, they have just been one of the franchises that have just always found a way to be bad for the most part. And they got Trevor Lawrence, and you kind of want to start seeing things turn around, but that didn't happen right away. However, this season, I think they start off the season, with only 3 wins, 3-7, 3-8, something like that. And they went on a massive run. They got this thing together. Doug Peterson, one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL. The guy won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles as his quarterback and was an offensive guru for a lot of the time. He took last year off. He comes back this year, and what happens? He kind of flies under the radar a little bit. I think he was a little bit disrespected as a coach. He gets in a situation, he's with a young quarterback. They got some young pieces on defense and offense as well. Look what he's doing. They're able to turn it around. I think they finished 9-8 on the season in the regular season. They win a must-win game. Granted, it was against a backup quarterback against the Titans. They get into the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence, first half, 4 interceptions. He looks bad. Asante Samuel looks like the second coming of Darrelle Revis, and everyone's writing him off. Second half starts. Trevor Lawrence finishes the game with 4 touchdown passes despite his 4 interceptions and a total of 288 yards. Travis Etienne, 20 carries, 109 yards. Evan Ingram having a blast of a game. 7 catches, 93 yards, a touchdown. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones putting up similar numbers. I mean, everyone was getting in on this, and it just looked like the Chargers in the second half of this game, they just had a tough time running the football, controlling the clock, and really, this just always seems to happen in, modern NFL games where teams get very conservative, and they just really get away from what really got them there, to the point where they had the lead. Now I understand there's this thing called momentum, and the Chargers, granted, they had all the momentum, but going into the second half, that last drive in the first half, they get the ball, the Jaguars do, they get on there, they get a touchdown, they try to make it somewhat of a game. But there's never enough points to be in a lead, to be comfortable. You always have to play as if it's the score is 0-0 and you're still trying to win the game. Yes, there are certain circumstances where you should run the ball and use effective clock management, but you can never get comfortable, and the Chargers got comfortable. Whether it was, bad clock management, bad play calling, down the stretch. I know a lot of people been hard on Brandon Staley. Good chance he might not be back next year. A lot of people talking about Sean Payton. But with the pieces they have, the Chargers are the better football team, talent-wise. But that didn't matter in this game because the Jaguars never, ever quit. And Trevor Lawrence, he came out the second half looking like the guy that should have been picked number 1 overall. Obviously he was, but he looked like the guy that was like, I'm the franchise quarterback. This is my team. And what a win for your first career playoff game at home, being down by that many points, throwing 4 picks in the first half. Everyone's writing you off. Shout out to the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence, man. It was a outstanding first game of the year. I'm going to look forward to see what they do the rest of the playoffs. I've always kind of fancied the Jaguars just a little bit because they came in the league the same year the Panthers did. So I've always kind of considered them our sister team in a way. So I've always kind of kept up with what they're doing. So it's nice to see them doing well. I like Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback. I like him as a person. He seems like a nice guy. And it's a good feel-good story. I love Doug Peterson as a coach. I wish we would have hired him as a coach last year. But, they've got some good pieces around there. And this comeback here, this was really something. And again, it brings me to the point. You can never have too many points in a game because teams will come back. Things happen, momentum shifts. Teams, they start playing soft zone defenses. They start backing up. They let you get the chunk plays. And it just formulates into this thing where teams come back. I would rather lose doing the same thing in the second half that was effective in the first half than trying to do this conservative approach and just trying to get away from what really worked. And I'll give the Jaguars defense credit. They really played well for most of the game. Now, they got put in a lot of bad situations because of Trevor Lawrence and the interceptions. They had to get back on the field so quickly. But they did a nice job of stepping up when they needed to. And, they've got some good pieces on that young defense. And, shout out to them. They did a nice job. Now, on to the Chargers. Brandon Staley, I'm sorry, man. I think your time in LA may be up. A lot of people talking about Sean Payton. A lot of people obsessed with the idea of Justin Herbert being paired with a offensive guru, an offensive mind, a great coach like Sean Payton. And, let's take a look. Obviously, Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints had great success there with Drew Brees down there in New Orleans. They won a Super Bowl. They were very competitive for a long time. They should have won more Super Bowls. But, a lot of people are... I like Justin Herbert. I want to clarify when I say this. I like Justin Herbert a lot. I think he's got the talent to be... the tools and the talent to be the best quarterback in the league. I mean, the guy's got a cannon of an arm. He's athletic. He can make his progressions. He's accurate. He does a lot of things well. I mean, what more could you ask for the guy? They're just, and he's really stepped up to become a leader the past couple seasons. He's one of those guys, very mild, very quiet. He doesn't talk a lot. Not one of those guys that's bravado, beats his chest, but he's very into what the team chemistry is and understands what's going on. But there's just something about him that I don't see yet to really, make that killer instinct and not everybody's got it. Not every great player has to have that Kobe Mamba mentality, and that's not really what I'm getting at. But you look at a guy like Mahomes, when he gets the ball, at the end of a game, I know Patrick Mahomes 9 times out of 10 is going to go down there and make a play. You give it to Joe Burrow late in a game, 9 times out of 10, I know Joe Burrow has that killer instinct. He's going to go down there and make a play. Justin Herbert, he's got the talent, but the mentality, that killer instinct, I haven't seen it yet. Not saying it won't come, because I think he's got a lot of potential still, but I've yet to see that. I'm Justin Herbert. Give me the ball. I'm going down the field. We're going to score. We're going to win the game. Now, I'm not blaming him for this loss completely. I think this was more of a coaching issue than anything. But, I'm still waiting out on the jury for Justin Herbert to become this next level quarterback. He's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of good things that he's got on his side, but I haven't seen it yet. Granted, the Chargers dealing with a lot of injuries. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, two magnificent players. They're very injury prone. What can the Chargers do to get to the next step? I think their team overall is really solid. They've got an excellent defense. Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr. had 4 picks in a game. And you got Khalil Mack, you got Joey Bosa, and Nick Bosa. Joey Bosa. Sorry, it's Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa. They got a lot of nice pieces here, but can they get to that next level? The AFC is tough. The AFC is really tough, way tougher than NFC. But I think they're missing that coach to really get them to the next level. It might not be Sean Payton. That's what a lot of people are saying they like to see him paired with, but he's linked to so many teams right now. It's really tough to navigate where he's going to go. But if I had to pick, the main concern there is I think they've got to get a different coaching staff in there, and I want to see that killer instinct. Maybe a coach can unlock it in Justin Herbert. I don't know, but I want to see that killer instinct in him. I've seen the whole social media quarterback tagline being thrown around. I understand why people say that, but I think he's more than that. But we need to see that unlocked a little bit inside of him, and hopefully we'll see that soon. But either way, congratulations to the Jags. You're moving on. Chargers, nice year. You got some good pieces. Not quite there yet. You should have won this game, but hey, you can't win them all sometimes.